Hey guys, Poro here with another Worlds 2025 team breakdown, this time for 100 Thieves from the LTA. For the people who haven't seen Split 3, or who only loosely followed the LTA as a whole, you might be surprised to see the Thieves here, instead of more established teams like TL or C9. For what it's worth, I was just as surprised as you all are now when I was watching through their regular season and playoffs run. Before getting into their season, there's something important about this team you all need to know. This is 100 Thieves' last season in the competitive League of Legends scene. At the start of the year, Riot gave 100 Thieves a provisional guest slot in the LTA, and it's a spot that could be taken away at a moment's notice. We already know that 100 Thieves is out for 2026, because we know Sentinels is replacing them. So for the players and coaches on this team, this year was really their last shot with the org to make something happen. Here's the team card. You might notice something funky about it. Yes, 100 Thieves had to play 8 best of 5s to qualify to Worlds. The reason why the number is so ridiculously high is because 100 Thieves actually spent a bulk of the split as the literal worst team in LTA North. They finished regular season without a single series win, and there were players quoted as saying 100 Thieves was the easiest opponent to beat. During the stretch of time, they were playing the same roster as last year in the prior 2 splits, with Sniper, a young mechanical talent from NA. Sniper's lane phase was fine, but the issue that 100 Thieves have had for years is an inability to play side lanes effectively, and much of this was due to Sniper. In an attempt to help him out, the org signed Dokla to be a positional coach for top lane, but in a pretty controversial decision, 100 Thieves after a month decided to bench Sniper for Dokla for the remainder of the split. The reason why this was controversial wasn't because of Dokla's skill, but just because of the concept of promoting a positional coach to the main roster. From a competitive integrity standpoint, it seems unfair for a coach, who knows a player's strengths and weaknesses, to then effectively be competing to unseat said player. Of course, Dokla had no intention of doing this when he signed on initially, it's just how the cookie crumbled. After Dokla joined the team, they showed new signs of life and were able to start their miracle run in which they had to play 6 elimination best of 5s on their journey to get that world spot, and they defeated the much more highly favored C9 along the way. While they started as the worst team in the region, they slowly leveled up their play week after week and eventually earned the region's respect as the clear second best team in NA. Dokla's career is quite interesting to look at. After being shot into the league too quickly back in 2019 and having some not so great splits, he was pushed back into the academy system for years where he would be given little to no opportunities for promotion. Once he joined CLG in 2022 though, he would start to carve out what would become his legacy, that being the ability to turn bad teams into good teams. With the only change to his rosters ever being subbing him in, he brought the 8th place CLG all the way to a 4th place finish, and next year would go on to win the entire LCS as massive underdogs and qualify to Worlds. At Worlds 2023, he would continue to shock as they took down G2 in Swiss stage to advance to quarterfinals, the furthest a Western team would make it that year. Heading into 2025, Dokla's career seemed pretty over as he was transitioning into more of a coaching role, but he once again found himself on an 8th place team where he was the one player who could be subbed in. Just like on CLG, Dokla's addition to this team turned the whole ship around basically right away, and 100 Thieves would go on to qualify to Worlds while taking down all of the favorites. The thing about Dokla is that he doesn't actually need to be flashy, mechanically great, or extremely confident to turn these teams around. Instead, what he offers is extremely consistently acceptable play. He has a good base of fundamentals from his time in the league, and the teams he joins always look much more stable when he plays. He was able to bandage some of 100 Thieves' side laning issues, which allowed the players to focus on what they're actually good at. I would say subbing in Dokla ended up being the best thing the team could have done, and he's more than proven his worth. River joined 100 Thieves in 2024, and during this time he's always been considered as one of the best junglers in the region. Similar to Dokla, River spent time on a bad team and was able to turn them around in drastic fashion, as he took the 8th place Golden Guardians roster all the way to both MSI and Worlds in 2023, when they were projected to be just bottom half. I think part of the reason for his success in NA is the fact that he's pretty used to winning. In his 4 PCS splits, he never once didn't make it to grand finals, and he had his fair share of respectable placements at international tournaments, including a semifinals MSI run where that PSG roster felt like they were going toe-to-toe with the eventual champions RNG. River's biggest strength as a jungler is his creative pathing. No matter how much vision you have around or how careful you are, it feels like River will always find a way to slip past your wards and gank you on a timer you never saw coming. Champions like Jarvan and Maokai, picks with good early gank potential, have been his main bread and butter, but he's also pretty good at the bruiser champions as well, like Wukong and Pantheon. When it comes to how 100 Thieves actually win their games, River is definitely either the most or second most important player on this team, and he's the engine that makes the whole machine go. Expect River to be one of the bright spots for this team at Worlds, regardless of if 100 Thieves have anywhere close to an acceptable run or not. If you don't think River is the best player on this team, you're probably thinking of the promising LCK Challengers talent, Quid. Quid was actually being brought up as the successor to Chovy, and while he never had good results in the LCK-CL, he was frequently brought up in conversations for the best mid laner there. When 100 Thieves snapped him up, people thought Quid would instantly be a top tier performer. Most Korean imports come in and use their mechanics to take over lane phase and gap everyone individually. Quad, the other LCK mid laner who qualified to Worlds through NA, took this approach where he would pick standard control mage picks and slowly find small advantages to bleed out the enemy. When Quid joined LCS, I think the reason why he didn't find success right away is because teams thought he would be more like the stereotypical Korean import instead of what he actually was. In reality, Quid's best talent is in his ability to fight and playmake. It almost feels like he has a skill set more reminiscent of an LPL player than an LCK one, and it wasn't until 100 Thieves changed the makeup of their roster to be more aggressive did Quid start to take over, and he was even awarded an MVP in spring of that year. The problems for Quid really became apparent at Worlds 2024, where he basically completely buckled under the pressure and had a bad showing, while 100 Thieves would make an embarrassing exit in the play-in stage. In 2025, Quid has leveled up his teamfight and playmaking game to another level. Some of the clips he pulls off are just insane to watch, and he was awarded First Team All-Pro for the season as a result. When 100 Thieves wins games, it's almost always off the back of a Quid standout performance. However, that shaky feeling from Worlds 2024 is still lurking. At that Worlds, Quid shut down when he was clearly the favorite, against teams like R7 and PSG were when he was at his lowest. For this entire playoffs run, 100 Thieves have been the underdogs and were expected to lose every series they played. Quid was completely fine during this entire portion. However, when 100 Thieves were the favorites, Quid's performance started to slip, and he had a very bad showing against VKS when his team lost the third place match to them. I really hope this isn't going to be a consistent pattern, but it seems like maybe Quid has some issues playing well when there are high expectations on him. FBI is one of the most consistently higher tier bot laners the LCS has to offer. I knew he was always up there, but I was actually pretty shocked when I was making the graphic and saw that he had 6 finals appearances. When you're watching FBI, he'll rarely do something that makes you overly impressed. When it comes to flashiness, River and Quid have that covered for this team. Despite the lack of highlights though, FBI is a great addition to the team. One highly redeeming quality FBI has as a player is that he knows how to identify his own strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes a player's ego will get to their head and they can't accept that there are certain champions or responsibilities they can't handle. FBI is not one of those, and he's really good at honing in on what he's good at while dropping what he's not. For example, FBI is not that good at Kai'Sa or Lucian. He tried it a few times earlier on because they're both pretty strong picks in the current meta, but he identified pretty quickly that those champions were not his strong suit and he stopped picking them. On the flip side, Senna and Ezreal are champions that people pick less nowadays after the nerfs and changes, but FBI still picks them because he knows they're champions he's the best at. It sounds simple, but I'm telling you this isn't a common strength for players to have. When a player knows how to stay in their own lane, it makes the game so much easier for both them and their teammates to win, and I think that's a big reason why FBI finds himself at the top of the standings so often. In past years, I've never been an Ayla believer. I think he's never really had a split where he's a top tier domestic support, and I rarely see plays from him I think are impressive. This split though, he's definitely improved a lot from his prior years. I think Ayla has a few redeeming qualities to his game, such as willingness to pick a wide variety of champions, and solid chemistry with his team as a whole. Overall though, I don't expect Ayla to be anything special at this tournament. In 2024, I would have listed him as possibly the worst major region player at the tournament, but he's definitely graduated from that at least, and I don't think he'll run it down as much as he did before. 100 Thieves as a team are pretty interesting. They might be one of the most one-dimensional teams at the tournament, and yet they keep finding ways to win against all the other teams in their region. When watching the team, there are plenty of patterns to notice, such as their tendency to drop side waves in favor of objective setups, or to use their tempo to try and catch people out when they're rotating towards or away from a point of interest. We can see 100 Thieves do these things every single game, and these things should be pretty punishable, but it just keeps working for them every single time. I think a big reason for this is because all the players on the team are comfortable with their roles and are good at playing like themselves at all times. Even when they make a bad play as a unit, or if something goes wrong for one player individually, 100 Thieves are really good at never being rattled by the result and they'll continue to play their game. The game in question is fighting on every single objective. It doesn't matter if they're favored to win the standoff or not, 100 Thieves will always be at the objective and they'll always set it up as best as possible. This is a similar strength to what I mentioned in the AL breakdown, and it's because the two teams have a pretty similar style to each other. Likewise, 100 Thieves have the same strengths AL do because of this. They're a team you can never mentally slip up against, because even if you're in the lead, 100 Thieves have good enough fundamentals in their objective setups that you still have to execute the fight properly to win. There are plenty of cases where 100 Thieves should be losing a situation, but because they prepped it better, they end up winning the fight anyway. This leads to a team who has a tendency to be able to make comebacks. This also means the players on 100 Thieves have plenty of experience with teamfighting, and it's become one of their strengths to have their players randomly take over and turn fights you never would have thought were turnable. When 100 Thieves does lose though, it's because they are quite one-dimensional. They drop less side waves with Dokal on the team than they do with Sniper, but they still bleed a lot of side lane farm, which is gold they're losing if nothing is actually happening. They use their tempo to try to set up a lot of trap plays, but this is a high risk strategy because if the trap doesn't work, then that's standing gold and map pressure being wasted. What I'm trying to say is that maybe more than any other team at the tournament, 100 Thieves gives off the appearance of a very beatable team with clear strengths and weaknesses, even if they're playing at their best. And on that thought, it's questionable if they'll even be able to do that, because we saw the core of this team go to Worlds before and have a terrible showing. Whether the players will be able to mentally recover and look in form is a question we don't have an answer to yet. I expect 100 Thieves to be one of the first teams out of the tournament. They have the skill set to beat teams better than them, so I wouldn't be shocked to see them win against a number of teams in the LCP or LEC, but I can't see their ceiling actually getting them to quarterfinals, or even 2 wins for that matter. That's all I have for you for this one. 15 down, 2 to go. I recently started a Patreon for people who want to support me more while I'm making these videos. I have 3 tiers, each with varying amounts of benefits including different types of behind the scenes content, and even a custom Poro drawing that I'll display in video outros. If that interests you, check out the Patreon link in the description. I'll see you all for the next one. Bye!